I wanted to talk about novels written during NaNoWriMo, so in the Goodreads list. So I wanted to talk about that. I tried to put these in categories because when in the NaNoWriMo, when it just comes up at Goodreads, they all show just random books. So they don't categorize the 33 books, put them out there, not in like genre specific. I just wanted to do that just because I thought it would be more organized. So I did it as in how many had each genre. So I did it like the least to the most. I just set up everything for my YouTube channel. So I set up this one, I set up this one, and then I have my tripod on set. I got a Sony ZV-1F. Gosh, this video is a million years long, I'm sorry. Bruh. The first one I'm gonna do is mental health. This one has 2 books in this category. The Wicked King. So it's by K. Akram. The book is about when August learns that his best friend Jack shows signs of distress and hallucination disorder. He is determined to help Jack cope. So I'm just gonna read the first sentence of everything, so it's gonna take forever. And it's contemporary and adult, fiction, fantasy, LGBTQ+, mental health, queer, fantasy, fiction. Then in that same category, it's called The Astonishing Color of After. So it's definitely an American book because there's no U in the word color. So I definitely know that. And it's by Emily X.R. Pan. Sorry, I have to look down. I really want to engage with you people. It's just, I don't have it memorized, like I said. Young adult, contemporary, mystery, fantasy, fiction, mental health, romance. So I kind of put in this genre just because it talks about mental health, so I wanted to put it in that category. Nominated for a Choice Award in the Goodreads Choice Award in 2018, so that's kind of a fun little fact. Leah, who is half Asian and half white, travels to Taiwan to meet her maternal grandfather for the first time. Ooh, that sounds interesting. 3 in fantasy, which was kind of shocked. I thought there would be more, to be honest. The first one I had is Submarine. This is the first book in the series, The Darkest Powers, and it's by Kelly Armstrong. The genres are young adult, fantasy. I put in fantasy because I kept saying it's a fantasy twice. Paranormal, fantasy, urban, fantasy, supernatural, romance, and then magic. But now she finds herself in the middle of some really strange situations because she suddenly starts seeing dead people. That sounds interesting. The next one is fantasy, obviously. Fantasy, young adult, retelling, fiction, urban fantasy, young adult, fantasy, romance. And the book is called A Blade So Black by L.L. McKinney. This is the little synopsis, and then I'll say one sentence. The first time the nightmares came, it nearly cost Alice her life. It actually makes me intrigued to read it. I actually do really like fantasy. I don't know. Comment down below what book you would read out of any of these ones, if any of them pique your interest. Okay, so the next book is also paranormal, but it also is urban fantasy and fantasy, romance, mystery, paranormal, romance, ghost. I didn't even know that was a genre. Called The First Grave on the Right, and it's part of the Charles Davison series. So it's the first book though. It is by Dorinda Jones. This whole Grip Reaper thing should have come with a manual, gotta read more sense, or a diagram of some kind. The next category is historical fiction. So I've actually been kind of into historical fiction a little bit recently. So this one is called The Modern Girls by Jennifer L. Brown. So this one also was nominated in 2016 for Goodreads Choice Awards. New York Jewish adult fiction adult. It is how was it that out of all the girls in the office, I was one to find myself in this situation. Okay, one more sentence. This didn't happen to be a nice Jewish girls community in the 1930s. Interesting. The next book I have is Something Strange and Deadly. So this one was a little bit tricky to like figure out what to put it under for me because it said it was historical fiction and then also paranormal, so I wasn't really sure. So, and fantasy. So I mean, I don't know, but it did say historical twice in it, so I'll just do historical. So this also is part of a series, and it's the first book. The series is called Something Strange and Deadly by Susan Dannard. The genres are an adult steampunk. So I have heard about steampunk before, but I've actually never read that genre. Not sure why. I just haven't had my hands on a book that has had that genre. Maybe I might give it a go one day. So, and then fantasy, zombie, paranormal, historical fiction, historical. The first sentence is Eleanor Fitt has a lot to worry about. What does she have to worry about? Her brother has gone missing from her family, has fallen on hard times, and her mother is determined to marry her off to any rich young man who walks by. It's kind of traitorous of her mom. It doesn't really sound like a good, healthy relationship right there. Okay, so the next book in this genre says historical fantasy. So it's, never heard that. It's called From Unseen Fire. It's by Cassie Morse. So it's the first book in the Evans cycle. Genres are fantasy, historical fiction, historical fantasy, fiction, romance, adult. So the first sentence is, whose republic will it be? That's all. That's all you're gonna get from that. Okay, so I have heard of this next book, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. So also she was nominated for the Goodreads Award in 2011 and also nominated for under the fantasy genre in 2011. The genre is under fantasy, fiction, romance, historical fiction, magical realism, magic, young adult. The circus arrives without warning. Okay, I'll read one more sentence. No announcements proceed. It is simply there when yesterday it was not. Within the black and white striped carnival tents, it is an utterly unique experience full of breathtaking amazements. Wow, interesting. That actually sounds kind of cool. So I actually have this book. I actually have two of these books in this whole thing. Water for Elephants. So I've read it when I was in like high school by Sarah Gruen. It is fiction, historical fiction, romance, historical, adult fiction, contemporary. When Jacob Jankowski, recently orphaned and suddenly adrift, jumps onto a passing train, he enters a world of freaks, drifters, and misfits. A second-rate circus struggling to survive during the Great Depression, making one night stands in town. So that's all for historical fiction. Contemporary / romance. There was a grand total of 10. The first one is A Little Something Different by Sandy Hall. And it's romance, young adult, so I'm not a fan of romance, just gotta say. Young adult, contemporary fiction, chick lit, new adult realism fiction. The creative writing teacher, the developing guy, the local Starbucks barista, his best friend, her roommate, and the squirrel in the park all have one thing in common. They all believe that Gab and Lee should get together. The next one is American Panda by Gloria Chow. Young adult, contemporary, romance, fiction, realistic fiction, young adult, contemporary. Is at 17, Mel should be in high school, but skipping fourth grade was part of her parents' master plan. Oh, that's so lame. Okay, next one. Let's Talk About Love. I mean, do I say more? By Claire Can. And she was nominated for Best Young Adult Fiction in 2018 for the Goodreads Choice Awards. And it's under romance, contemporary, LGBTQ+, queer community, fiction, and new adult. The first sentence is, Alice had her whole summer planned. Non-stop, all-you-can-eat buffets while marathoning her favorite TV shows. The next one's Jackpot by Nick Stone. Dance, contemporary and adult. Meet Rico, high school student and afternoon shift cashier at the Gas and Go, who after school and work races home to take care of her younger brother. Oh, it sounds kind of like a sad story. So I've read this book. It was all over BookTube. Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. That was the first, obviously it's the first book in the series. And romance and adults, chick lit, I've never heard of that. genre. Fiction, realistic fiction, contemporary romance. Anna is looking forward to her senior year in Atlanta, where she has a great job, a loyal best friend, and a crush on the verge of becoming more. Which is why she is less than thrilled about being shipped off to boarding school. When she meets Ellington Sinclair, smart, charming, beautiful, Ellington has it all, including a serious girlfriend. Fangirl. I actually read this in high school. Okay, Fangirl. It's book 1 by Rainbow Rowell. And it was again nominated for Best Young Adult Fiction 2013 Goodreads Choice Awards. And it's a coming of age tale, fan fiction, family, and first love. So romance, contemporary, you get the gist. Okay. Kath is a Simon Snow fan.
So this one is obviously the same, romance, contemporary, all the things.
Evie. Drake Starts Over. This was also nominated in 2019 for a debut novel, which is kind of cool. And for Goodreads. When I always say they're nominated, it's for Goodreads. You would know this by now because you've seen everything before. In a sleepy sea town in Maine, recently widowed Evie, Drake rarely leaves her large, painful, empty house nearly a year after her husband died. With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. It was also nominated in 2018 for young adult fiction. Oh, and it's all genres the same, blah, 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 blah. With her daughter to care for and her abuela to help support high school senior Emilio Santiago has to make the tough decision and do what must be done. Sounds more like hearty, more deep than just romance. I like that. And also it's multicultural. I like that too. The Wedding Date. So this is actually a series, the first book, and it's by Jasmine Guillory. And it was nominated in 2018 for romance. The first sentence is agreeing to a wedding with a guy she gets stuck with in an elevator is something Alexa Moreau wouldn't normally do. There's something about Drew Nichols that's too hard to resist. Okay, Side Effects May Vary. It's the next book. By Julie Murphy. It is all the same genres. The sentence is, when 16-year-old Alice is diagnosed with leukemia, she votes to spend her final months righting wrongs. She convinces her best friend, Harvey, to help her with a crazy bucket list that's as much about revenge as it is about hope. It's just not my genre, but that's okay. Now the last genre we're gonna do is my favorite, bruh, and it has the most, which I'm shocked. It has 13 books in it. So some of it is science fiction / dystopian. So Fate of Flames. Okay, so the series is Ephesus, and it's the first book. It's the young adult fiction, magic, science fiction, dystopian, and then young adult fantasy. Years ago, everything changed. Phantom's massive beasts of nightmare began terrorizing the world. So this next book is called Annihilated, and it's from the Annihilated series by Melissa Landers. Science fiction, romance, aliens, fantasy, paranormal, fiction. So the reason why I put it just in science fiction because it was one of the first genres that popped up. The first sentence, handpicked to host the first LE exchange student, Kara thinks her future is set. One more sentence. Not only does she get a free ride to her dream college, she'll have inside information about the mysterious leafer that every journalist would kill for. Child of Lightning. It's part of the Sixth World. And it's the first book by Rebecca Reinhardt. So it's under the genres of fantasy, urban fantasy fiction, dystopian, young adult, post-apocalyptic, science fiction. And the first sentence is, while most of the world has drowned beneath the sudden rising waters of a climate apocalyptic Demeter, it formerly has been reborn. Dark for me. I should stop giving my opinion because it's not about me. Darwin Elevator is the next book, and it's part of the Dar Earth cycle, and it's the first book, and it was nominated for science fiction in 2013. Science fiction, apocalyptic fiction, dystopian, alien, zombies, thriller. In the middle 23rd century, Darwin, Australia stands as the last human city on Earth. The world has to succumb to an alien plague, with most of the population transformed into mindless, savage creatures. The next book is Cruel, and it's also part of a series, and it's the Cruel World series, and it's book 1, and it's under young adult, fantasy, dystopian, science fiction, romance. First senses, that's what the other girls whisper behind her back, but 16-year-old Adelise Louise has a secret she wants to fail. Gifted with the ability to weave time with Maker, she's exactly what the guide is looking for. This sounds very, very intricate. I feel like this is like a lot of character development happening in this book. This is Unexpected Rain by Jason W. Lapierre, and it's also part of a trilogy, Dome trilogy, and it's book 1. Science fiction, mystery, fan fiction, mystery thriller. First sentence. Jack Jackson, wow, that's a name. If he had any, finds his life turned upside down when a small dome neighborhood on the 4th planet, orbiting Barnett star, lost life support on his watch. Oh no. Next book is What the Woods Kept. Cata de Becerra. I think this is a translation from French, it seems like. It's under the genres of fantasy, young adult mystery, paranormal, horror, and science fiction mythology. On her 18th birthday, Hayden inherits her childhood home. On your 18th birthday? Oh my goodness, girl. So I've heard this book going around a while back, because this is like 2012. It's called Wool, and it's in the Silo series, and it's by Hugh Howey, and it was also nominated for Science Fiction 2012. The author was also nominated in 2012 by genres science fiction, fan fiction, dystopian, post-apocalyptic. Thousands of them have lived underground. They've lived there so long, there are only legends about people living anywhere else. The Calculating Stars. Also in a series, it is called Lady Astronaut Universe, and it's the book 1. And it is under the genre science fiction, fiction, historical fiction, alternative history. Never heard of that genre. Historical adult space. And then it was also nominated for Science Fiction 2018. On a cold spring day in 1952, a huge meteorite fell to Earth and obliterated much of the east coast of the US. Okay, the next book is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. And then it is under the genre science fiction, fiction, young adult, contemporary, LGBTQ+, and adult. And it was also nominated for Best Fiction, and it was also nominated for Debut Author, so it's cool. Roaring Through New York at 3 a.m., 23-year-old April May. I love that. That's a great name. That's a great character name. Stumbles across a giant script. The next one is The Beautiful Land by Alan Averill. It is under the genre science fiction, fiction, time travel, fantasy, horror, adult, contemporary. So I put it under science fiction because it's the first genre that actually came out. Working for the Oxford Corporation as an exporter of parallel timelines, as many as various as anyone could imagine. Wow. Okay, 2 more books, people. 2 more books. Okay, so I have this book, but someone's wearing it right now, and it is Cinder. It's the Lunar Chronicles, and it is amazing. Marissa Meyer, the first book in the Lunar Chronicles. It's a retelling. Cinderella, Red Riding Hood, Snow White, and Rapunzel. I like it how she adds in the characters, but also puts in the person who they're talking about. So say like Cinder, they're talking about her like cyborg, because she's like half cyborg, half human. So it kind of delves into more of her story, and then when it goes to Scarlet, Red Riding Hood, they go more into her story, but they also have Cinder in it. They focus mainly on her. I like how they have like minor characters, but they're still in the story. Incorporated all that. I like that. So it's young adult, science fiction, romance, dystopian, retelling. The last one is Belt 3 by John Aliff, and science fiction, fiction adult. Captain Gabriel Reinhardt last mining mission has been brought to a halt by the arrival of a World Breaker, one of the vast alien machines that destroyed Earth and its solar system long ago. But that is all of the books. I think the one I'm looking most forward to reading, The Night Circus. Side effects may vary. Tell me the ones that you're interested in or that you didn't even know that was a NaNoWriMo. I'm going to do also Chantal Reads All Day, her Read Your Bookshelf challenge. So I'm going to try to do all the prompts and then show you what I'm going to use for all those prompts for the 12th book for next year, so 2023. I'm also wanting to do the most anticipated reads for next year for myself. I want to, and maybe I might get some other ideas from you guys, and just let me know what your most anticipated reads are down below so I can look those up. Have a good day.